Live Brand Design, and the speakers for the same are Alok Nandi, who is the partner and managing director at Spread Design BV. And it's an enterprise specialized in interactive setups. Alok is a creative entrepreneur with a long career journey in various waves of digital transformation. And to moderate the session, we have with us Sonia Manchanda, who is the founding partner, Spread Design and Innovation. Sonia designs ground-up strategies for massive scale and impact. She leads interdisciplinary teams through tough challenges, demonstrating a high level of thought and craft in branding, experience, and interactions. Over to you, Alok and Sonia.
Thanks, Smita. Hi, everyone. Is the audio good? A quick check.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. So Sonia Manchanda and myself, we are one based in Bangalore, the other based in Brussels, Belgium, Europe. And so we are zooming in here and we'll have a conversation. So let us say that each of us will moderate the others or unmoderate, if I may say so. So Sonia will briefly introduce herself in a few seconds, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll go and jump into the topic of live brand design. Sonia, the floor is yours.
I've been working in the design space and the branding space now for the past 20 years, and been working on developing a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, so and getting so many insights. Been involved with developing millions and millions of square feet of retail, and trying to create brands which are born out of human insight, and brands which are, say, sort of local, and they're trying to do some good work locally, and we look at how these can be potentially global brands. So in doing so, we've set up a full service design company. I'm the founder, I'm one of the founding partners of Spread, which is a design firm that looks at brand experience, interaction, and today, even immersive technologies and immersive realities, and trying to see how we can use design to make a difference to business and to life. So that's my background.
Okay. And my background, so Alok Nandi, I'm based in Brussels, Europe. And as some of you can guess from my name, my parents are from India in Kolkata, but I'm born in Congo. So being born in Congo, raised in Zaire, spent life in Europe and connecting to India, I've been looking at brands in different capacities, and that will be one of the topics that we'll go into. And as Sonia has a journey into brand, my journey into brand began quite long ago, last century. My first hands-on brand was in brand management, working for Procter & Gamble. You know, the famous Procter & Gamble company, and I used to work on brands like Vicks. Vicks is quite famous in India. Richardson Vicks was brought by P&G, and then I was busy with the brand activities of P&G. So this is to say that the notions of brand in the 90s were pushed by companies like P&G, Unilever, and all those players. And on the other side, we had the advertising agencies like Ogilvy, Saatchi & Saatchi, and all these. So coming from that universe, I began to design websites in the mid-90s. And one of the websites I was busy with was Tintin, the comic book series. Tintin is a brand by itself. So many people in India know Tintin. How do we play with Tintin as a brand is something we might go into in the conversation with Sonia. So from brand management to storytelling to designing websites for publishers of comic books, that's my journey into how can we rethink brand for startups, which is the topic of today with this group, and how can we be inspired by re-questioning notions of brand, knowing that our landscape is hybrid, digital and physical. How are we reshaping brand design systems, taking into account technology? Like we just came in and the previous speakers were talking about from prototype to market. And my question to Sonia would be, from pre-prototype to prototype, where do we put brand? And then from prototype to market, how do we make sure that brand is evolving in interesting ways? These are some of the topics that we'll be spending time together with Sonia, myself, and you, the audience, and some of the other speakers. Does it frame our conversation, our session? I would guess yes, Sonia?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay, great. So big brands, small brands, emerging brands, brands having impacts on the planet. We see that brand is a topic which needs to be revisited often and often. And with Sonia, we'll take some examples, things that she has been busy with, I have been busy with, and then we'll try to think about, because this session is also what I would suggest, reflecting about our practice as designers and try to have you interact with us. Sonia, you want to punch and ask something to the audience and see if it works?
Yeah, I want to ask everyone to just write down one word when they think of brand. What do you think of when you think of brand? Is there one word? Is it identity? What is it that comes to your mind?
So we'll spend a few seconds and see what do you think about, and I see Akshat is reacting.
Recall, emotion.
Smita.
Yes.
Now, the reason why we are asking this question is that brand means so many things to so many of you, that our challenge as designers is to try to find some interesting common grounds. And that is where, Sonia, in our conversation, I would ask you to react on what I mean by common ground. Does it make sense or not?
It does, but I actually really want to talk about fundamentally what it means. You know, what is happening is today in this interconnected world, you know, we're connected all the time. In this world, brand is not really a passive construct. It's a very active and almost alive construct. It's a living thing, you know. So it's emotion. So I like the fact that you said emotion. It's alive in the moment, and it's about emotion. It's about, but where does it start from? So if you're starting to design your brand, how are you going about it? Is it a logo? Is it certain set of colors? I would say that what you need to start from, and I want to talk a little bit about the construct we use. We call it the live brands construct, where we first look at defining the purpose. Step back a lot and think a lot about, why do you exist? What is the fundamental reason for you to exist? Are you being able to communicate that to people out there, to your audience? So you start with defining the brand purpose. Once you define the brand purpose, and you do this systematically, so you don't just say, okay, let's go with the logo or let's go with the baseline. Really look and think about the purpose. And the purpose also defines, this is the resolve I have. This is the change I will make in the world. And coming back to your question of common ground, it's where we will come together with people and we will make this collective change in our lives in the world. You know, so the defining the purpose helps do that. From there on, we go to what we call the design strategy, which is, how does this translate into a whole system and a set of codes, in a language, in a way of communicating, in a certain energy that we're putting out in the world, you know, and a set of assets. Again, because it's a phygital world today, we look at creating a brand playbook and say a digital playbook, things which need to repetitively be put out there, you know, and so that the codes, the DNA doesn't change of the brand as we go along. So you define the strategy, and after you define the strategy, then you start looking at, what's the experience of this brand? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does the touch of this brand look like? How might we create active experiences. Can we do active experiencing of this brand? So it goes much beyond just your visuals and your communication. It's the experience of the packaging, is the experience of the service, is the experience of the marketing. It's the experience across. So and an experience that is very sensorial. It can be very sensorial. It can be very sensitive. Now, if this brand were a human being, how would it do this particular thing? How would it touch you in a particular way? So some examples from our work is, along with the Karnataka Rural Development and Panchayat Raj Department, we've created this movement for change around wastewater and sanitation, which is, and it's called Swachhameva Jayate. And it has a ringtone. So to the people out there in the field, to everyone involved with this project, the ringtone is a reminder. It's a sweet, mellifluous sound that comes, which says Swachhameva Jayate, which means that only through cleanliness can we be victorious. At another level, we had the opportunity at the Design Barn, which is our design space, which Alok of, you know about this, but I'm mentioning it for the audience. We were able to actually create, so Nexa was launching the new revised Ciaz, the new car, and they wanted it to be for creative people, creative folks. So they chose Bangalore to launch the car because they wanted an immersive experience for all the journalists. And then they realized that if they take people all around Bangalore, the experience is not going to be so great because the roads typically in Bangalore are quite bad. So, but they still wanted to bring alive the creative destinations of Bangalore. So at the Design Barn, we sort of put up sketches of all the destinations. And we also had different creative experiences rolled out for the journalists. So one of the experiences was we had this chocolatier, this guy who makes chocolate. And when the journalists came in, they could use a word like, say, my ride was smooth. My ride was exciting, energizing. And then based on that word, they would design a chocolate with the chocolatier, and their name would be put on it, and the chocolate would be sent to them to remind them of their experience. So here's active experiencing of the brand. If I'm saying creative, and my baseline is create, inspire, it's not enough to say it. You need to live by it. And given the digital landscape, in every little thing you do, you need to be able to live by it. And sometimes create that element of surprise, that element of magic, that creates that recall, Smita, that you're mentioning. So it's emotion, and yes, it's recall. And that recall happens when you have a certain element of magic that you create to cause that recall. There's a brand, this is not something we've done, but it's quite a beautiful case study where somebody has done a magic wand. And that magic wand is just a way to order takeaway. So, and you move that wand and you can order your favorite takeaways. And it's just to be able to say that, hey, we do magic. You're sitting at home, you can have all the food you want. So it's bringing a certain sensorialness, a certain sensitivity. It's like a smell reminds you of a certain person. So a smell can remind you of a certain brand, and so to be able to think that through, if it's a personality, what is it? And this fundamentally derives out of human insight. So when we design, like all the food retail we did for Food Hall and Food Bazaar for Future Group, we looked at what is a fundamental insight and who's the person we are designing this for. So it was the Indian housewife, who's in parts traditional, in parts modern. What she doesn't have is all the help that typically was there to be able to make the complex Indian food. That Indian food is very complex. You need almost a factory to make it. So she doesn't have all that help. So we felt that the fundamental insight here is that she needs service. So can we provide unconditional service like the Gurudwara? So one insight based on which we designed the brand was the idea of seva, of service that we provide here. And then we designed it, many codes, in like 1,000 different ways. We designed it into the store design, into the entire experience, into the service design, into all of that. So taking that inside and then just translating it across. So you start with your purpose, you need to derive your strategy, you need to have your systems, but ultimately it's about the last experience you had. It's like a loved one. It's the last experience you had.
Now, Sonia, if I'm a startup, and because we are here in the track where we are talking about entrepreneur who maybe have challenges in allocating their budget, and they don't want to put money towards design and brand design, how are we going to help them change their mindset is a question that keeps me busy. I'll give you a short example. Entrepreneurs are ready to pour 1 million into marketing, but not 100,000 into design. And my provocation there is it's better to spend 500,000 into design and 1 paisa in marketing rather than the reverse. The problem I see with venture capitalists and some other folks, and let me be provocative here, is that they prefer to spend money on marketing rather than design. How are we going to convince them that they have the wrong mindset?
So, Alok, the problem with us in India is that we're engineers first. We care about how things work, not about how they feel. Our humanity side is very weak, and that is the big difference and I think that is the big difference. That's why we go and build products for others and are not able to build our own business successes. And that's why we need design-driven entrepreneurship, which brings design to stage zero.
And it is great. And it is great to see TiE hosting us.
Yes.
Because how do we move from a engineering mindset to a designerly mindset driven is something which Sonia, myself, Navyog, and some others, we are busy for quite some years. And that is what we are bringing here on stage. We are talking about what we are doing in the kitchen, if I may use that metaphor, and say, okay, dear entrepreneur, stop thinking only like an engineer. Begin to think like a designer, entrepreneur, engineer, because we are all.
Yes.
And that is where India needs to make a mindset change. And that is where brand can help us to rethink the interrelationships between brand design and experience design.
Yeah.
And I have been busy for the last 20 years on UX, UI. And my thinking there is stop thinking only about UI, confusing with UX, but begin to think about a system approach where you have UX, UI, brand, communication, content, and try to interconnect all these different bricks and envision. And so when we talk today about brand design and live brand design, it's stepping back and try to say, okay, which kind of system we are going to envision? And even as a startup, if you have a very low budget approach, you can begin to think about emergent dynamic system. And that would be my reading of live brand system. Sonia, any reaction on that one?
Yes, I agree with you, Alok. I think basically the entrepreneur needs to be somebody who's an integrative thinker. We cannot be only left brain. He has to be both, and he or she has to be both left brain and right brain, because the human beings choose from their heart first, and therefore you're looking at not just the mind and the body, but you're also looking at the soul of what you're creating. So, and you must understand that, because you may make the greatest product. If it doesn't appeal to the heart, if it isn't, look at Apple, look at the pitch it had about changing the world, So you need to share that big resolve that you made, and then people will come along with you. If you put that product out there and you think, hey, I made a great product. Well, maybe I can't see the poetry in it unless you share it with me as poetry. The aesthetics are important. The story is important. The narrative is important. So part of the strategy is sharply defining that narrative. You can't a lot of the times I've seen, and it's like sometimes really almost disturbing, where you create a beautiful brand, you create a beautiful narrative, and then an advertising agency is brought in who's got some cockeyed view of what should be said to the customer, which has no connection with what you actually meant or intended this brand for. And just because the guys out there know how to pitch it, you go ahead with it. And then the next set of agency comes in when you're bored with the first set. And well, this poor brand is being just, sort of being made to say whatever you wanted to say. What was it really meant for? You're losing your story to people coming and imposing a story on a beautiful brand or idea you may have created. One of the things we've just, Alok, what we've been working on, I thought I would share, is working on this idea of a space where you learn and grow continuously, which is a brand we've just designed, and you can see the website is just live and still in testing phase, which is a brand called Wired, VIRED, which is virtual plus education, a space and an idea where as professionals, anyone can learn and grow continuously. So you stay wired. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a place where you take a course. Now, this idea, we've just about put that idea out there, but then that idea has to be consistent many, many, many years later. So Manipal is one of the brands we created where we went back to where the founders started from. Today, it's a big brand, but at that point in time, you could have said it's a startup, because what we were really called to do was create a brand for Manipal hospitals. And we realized that here was a vision. Somebody was inspired by life and wanted to do the things the government should do, which is in learning, in healing. And so we made a brand around the vision of being inspired by life, by people, by human beings, making a difference into their lives, which is why perhaps it's a respected brand today.
Great. It's Smita. How long do we have? Because I see time is flying, and that we had only 20 minutes to open up this huge topic, which is brand, and we could spend 20 hours if you agree with us. But I'm sure, Smita, you'll become nervous if I say that we'll spend 20 hours on that.
Alok and Sonia, we do have limitations, so we are running out of time now. You could quickly conclude. And
yeah, so I just want to add that we are available on LinkedIn, and you can get in touch with us at any point in time, and we can even set up a conversation if you really, really have a burning need to understand how design can make a difference to your brand.
And I'm sure that you'll communicate about the fact that some of the winners of the awards will get some time with us to talk about their brands. So thank you for organizing this session and giving the floor to brand. And I'm sure it gets into resonance with the next set of speakers where they are talking about experience. And I was telling in another talk that brand and experience are the two faces, the two sides of the same coin. And I'm curious to hear more about the experience part.
Thank you. Thanks, Sonia and Alok, for sharing your thoughts on brand design that we could use for our businesses. Your advice helps. Thanks again, both of you.